Hello and welcome to another video. This time it's going to be something a little bit different. So about 2 weeks ago I did a video on how Warlords of Draenor is going to improve World of Warcraft's Endgame, and the video did pretty well. There's a bunch of responses, and as always with the big discussion videos, if possible I like to do a feedback video, and in that just a response video really, and in that I just take people's questions, people's comments, and I'll respond to them. So, without any more beating around the bush, let's just get into it. The first one's from Silas, and he says, "From my understanding, new Warlords of Draenor looking for aid will be more about personal wipes, i.e. if you stand in the fire, you die, but the bosses scale based on people dying or leaving, so if you're DPS and you die, then the boss's HP will decrease. So, noobs failing will probably not wipe the group, unless, of course, all the tanks and healers are idiots." So, I don't know why, but somehow if this is true, I haven't done any fact-checking, because I'm really pro. If this is true, then fuck, it's fantastic. What this basically means is that the biggest problem with LFR will be gone. And you've probably heard me say a lot that my issue with LFR is that the way that everything's nerfed is so that the mechanics don't really matter. But they don't really matter in a way that is specifically annoying and uninteresting, like the boss does its whole, big hoo-ha and its abilities, but the abilities just tickle you. Well, with a system like this, it means that people being idiots won't necessarily wipe the group, and it won't be as punishing to the group, therefore they can actually have mechanics that slightly matter. So, yeah, I think that would be nice. If maybe the fire would actually kill you if you stood in it for 5 seconds, that would be okay. And if there was someone who was stupid enough to die, then the boss scales down and it doesn't hurt people. So actually I think this is quite a good thing. Having these mechanics actually matter inside the fight gives gameplay within that 5 or 6 minute window in which the fight takes place. Instead of where you could really just stand still, and honestly standing in the fire, it would maybe take 15 seconds to die if you stand in the fire in some LFRs. So, if they actually made those mechanics matter, there's more gameplay, meaning there's more of a positive feedback loop in the game, which is good because instant gratification, you're instantly rewarded for your success, and it's good. So, yeah, I'm glad that they are doing this, apparently, and that's kind of fantastic. Now, in a somewhat related term, GraphsB8072 says, "The term tourist mode used when Blizzard talks about LFR sounds a bit like they're looking down on it. I didn't like when they used it at BlizzCon." Look, tourist mode, what is a tourist? A tourist is somewhere who goes to a place specifically to see the site, and that is exactly what they want LFR to be. And the only difference between current LFR and Warlords will probably be that it will be, on the whole, a good bit easier, but perhaps they will increase the personal difficulty in line with the stuff that Silas said. I think that would be a really nice balance. It means there's still individual gameplay, but I don't know, they're just not completely gimped in terms of being an annoying slog like they are now. So that would all be kind of fun. I'd actually kind of like it if players who perform well within their given role inside an LFR were maybe slightly rewarded, just a little bit more. I don't know, maybe there's some bonus valor or some bonus thing. That said, it's a bit of a problem in game design if the only way that you have to get your player to do something right is to just kind of have a carrot sitting out. That's not really a good way to do it. You should always want to have that gameplay come from within the person themselves, so I think that might be a bit of a weird way to do it. Still though, it would be nice if they had just some way of enhancing the gameplay for people who actually do bother to stay around and not die in the boss. Anyway, next question is from Mr. Brain Damaged, or no, Mr. Drain Bamaged. Bramaged, yeah, that's a name. Anyway, he says, "Even with OQ, there's a few dicks, but people most widely accept low item levels until you get towing 3 or 4, so hopefully it sticks around." Basically, I think what he means is, in general, people are quite accepting of low item levels in OQ until you get to the higher wings of, Siege of Orgrimmar, and I think that's fine, really. The higher wings should be something that is for the people who've managed to put in the effort and have a bit more gear, and that's fine because they should be harder. That's just a part of a difficulty curve. So with OQ flexes, I think that's definitely fine, and you know what, with the in-game system, it will be the exact same as well. You won't be able to get into the higher wings without good gear, and I think that's absolutely right, because honestly, you're not going to be able to pull your weight, and you probably don't deserve to be there, so yeah, gear up, people. Look, for the players who actually want to get to the later wings of a flex mode, well, they're going to have that gear anyway, so it's not much of a problem. Anyway, next comment is from Graspy again, who says, I really like Thunder Isle and your server progress with unlocking the entire zone. I was kind of hoping for something like that in the future. Well, I think in essence, yes, like it was kind of cool the way that happened in the Thunder Isle, it was cool the way it happened in Kildanas, but the problem is it was just so highly deterministic. You had that bar, and the bar would fill up X amount every day, pretty much, and there was no real personal involvement with it. So that's definitely a bit of an issue. I like the idea of things being unlocked, but by assigning it a bar, it's a thing that's in the game's UI, it's not a part of the world. So I'd say that, for example, if it was, let's just say there's a staging area, right, where the Alliance are ramping up to attack some of the Iron Horde, right, and maybe that's just a part of one of these new questing zones. Well, how about, over time, as your server unlocks things, instead of just having some annoying deterministic bar, there you actually physically see troops ramping up and supplies being made, and then maybe if you talk to an NPC, that NPC will tell you, yeah, I'd say we'll be maybe ready to attack in a few days. That's a nice way to add this progress into the game, so it's still something you can find, but it gives it a nice visual representation, and very much, more importantly, it keeps things inside and within the world, rather than locking it off to a piece of UI. I think that user interface is a really important thing to design well, but it can also be a bit of a hindrance in games in the sense that sometimes developers, they just like to throw in a bar or throw in a thing in the UI to communicate something, and that just ends up feeling kind of arbitrary and it takes the player out of the world. I think that ramping up for an attack on something has got far more gravitas and effect if you actually physically see those troops ramping up, and it's just not the case of you have hardly any troops there for 10 days while the bar increases, and then on the 10th day when the bar has increased because of the server participation, all of a sudden there's an army there. Well, how about that army slowly masses over a few days and just things like that, so it's more of a visual in-game representation. And we actually have another question from Graspy, or comment, which is probably worth talking about. He says that the Paladin quest chain back in the day was really cool. It's the one in which you got your mount. And he would like to see it brought back for the non-human Palis so they could get their racial mount. Basically, in general, he likes the idea of these racial mount quests. I think they can definitely tie this into classes. I like the idea of class quests. I also like the idea of race quests. But I think it's kind of hard to do those because they really do segment a lot of the community. So yeah, class race quests are in general cool things. Of course, class quests are probably the best way to go about it. And yeah, I mean, the more of them, the better, right? Warlocks really enjoyed Green Fire. I know Hunters, a lot of the time, enjoyed the old Hunter quest, but sometimes it was a little bit tedious. I think overall, maybe if you could have a class legendary from time to time or something like that, that would be really nice. Maybe as a thing you could unlock by doing a really badass thing. And part of this class quest line actually involved using the specific mechanics of your class in a unique way so that you actually feel like you're playing a hunter or you feel like you're playing a shaman. Something like that would be nice. But yeah, in general, I think in the video itself I did talk a lot about how I want there to be more class quests and then just unique things like that. Anyway, next comment is from Extreme Plays 2. That's it. And he says, are dailies really a problem? Or are people just more upset about gear progression being a huge part of dailies? Why does Blizzard have to remove dailies altogether when they can just remove the reputation or valor, etc.? Okay, so I think definitely dailies themselves are inherently a little bit problematic because they are, in their nature, a daily grind. But of course, Blizzard can dress that up to a point where it doesn't really feel like that. The problem with Mists of Pandaria is, and I actually think I agree with this guy, is it wasn't the dailies themselves, it was more the fact of the implementation and the fact they were so tied towards gear. I remember spending like 2 days farming Mogu trying to get Gulai Cache Key so I could gain a quicker or faster access to, I think it was one of my patterns for leatherworking, maybe? But yeah, it was so tied to gear progression that it was just a pain in the arse. They asked you to do so many sets of dailies at once, and that whole hub system they had to try and make it feel different was just bullshit, it didn't work. So yeah, I think the major problem was just the dailies themselves, or the implementation of them. Overall, I think having a few dailies every day would be absolutely fine, there's no problem, a little bit more structure. And from the sounds of things, Blizzard will be adding a little bit more structure in Warlords. They said that the Timeless Isles was a really great experiment, but it didn't have enough structure. And what adds structure? Well, quests add structure, so I'd say there will be a few dailies. Still though, I think they can achieve this blend between having structured content in the form of maybe one-off quests, the odd daily, something like that, and then the more dynamic time and style things. And once they actually manage to integrate all that together into one really nice package, then we will have a pretty fantastic experience. They aren't there yet, though. They probably won't get there in the first patch of Warlords, but maybe by the third one or the fourth one, they'll have actually nailed a really solid system and a great balance. Next comment is from VenomHacks, who says, since the focus of this expansion is going to be a little bit more PvP-ish than the last one, will there be a change in honor gain for the better or the worse? Well, I don't think it's more of a focus on PvP. I think it's more they've actually decided to support PvP a little bit more. Personally, I've really enjoyed things like Wintergrasp and Tolbrad, and even though I wasn't much of a PvPer, I would always participate in them because I thought they were fun. So it's nice that Ashran's coming back. In terms of gear and honor, though, I think they're probably going to largely keep the same system. But perhaps, like, they're definitely going to have to, like, watch out for exploits and things like that. Not exploits, but creative use of game mechanics. Like, there was a bit of a problem recently where people could just grind up as much honor as they wanted per day via the bosses in Karasang Wilds and hopping between servers. So they'll have to make sure they don't put any little loopholes like that, which just undermine the honor system. Though there is definitely a problem with Battlegrounds, because you get hardly any honor from losing a battleground. So I think there's got to be something where there's a baseline amount of honor that you get from doing a battleground that's not shit. And I know there is a problem with bots and that sort of thing, but like I think it really puts people off doing battlegrounds when they know that if they lose, and often if you lose it's not your own personal fault, but you know that if you do lose then you're kind of borked. You know, you don't get that much. So if there's any way they can maybe add some more personal element to how they reward honor inside Battlegrounds, I'm not exactly sure how they would do that, but that could help. Maybe just increasing the baseline amount of honor you get from a loss could be a little bit more, or a little bit better. In terms of outside PvP things, I mean, I don't know, I kind of like the idea of honor just being a thing you get from PvP. I don't really know if it would be a good idea to get it from anything else. I think one thing they should probably do, though, is allow you to turn Valor into Conquest. I think that would be nice. I think they used to have that, and they took it away, so that might be good. There was an article by Olivia Grace from WoW Insider about Honor, and I think it was Honor and Warlords. I don't have a link to it, but it's probably worth checking that out. I don't know, she posted it on Twitter ages ago, so go web detect and find that. Anyway, next comment is from Lex Frenson, and he says, in my opinion, looking for raid loot, I think they should have it, they should make it so that loot drops from LFR bosses, and it should have the same item level as the loot for 5-man heroics. That way people would queue up for content, 5-mans would be more viable again, and there would be no more discussion of LFR destroying the loot drops from normal, like, from heroics, and just basically it would make loot a little bit nicer. Okay, so LFR, I think, I don't know, I'm okay with it being slightly more than 5 heroics, but that would only really be in a world where, okay, so it's probably just worth saying, I have a Mythic dungeon video in the works. It's about 25 minutes of me. Basically, the first half of it is examining and trying and giving some game design reasons why the various forms of heroics that we've had in the past have had their issues, and then my solution for the entire system, the entire loot system, in going forward not Cataclysm, in Warlords of Draenor. So I will probably cover some of your concerns there, but I think that with LFR being more of a kind of touristy thing, not in a derogatory manner, just in a see the content sort of sense of the word, it is okay if its item level is comparatively a little bit lower than it is at the minute. They have, though, been trying to differentiate LFR in terms of loot from normals by increasing the gap between LFR and normal loot. I think they can probably just keep on doing that, honestly, for all I'm concerned. Because the thing is, for the people who just want to do LFR, as long as that LFR gear is enough to just serve you in the normal PvE content, why the hell do you want gear that's normal or close to normals or something? You have no use for it if you're not going to do normals, right? As long as it's enough to bridge you into the first wing of flex, then you're fine. So yeah, LFR can definitely be toned down a little bit, I think. Anyway, next comment is from Wary Berry, who says, the Mythic Heroics is a brilliant idea. I have fond memories of wiping in Burning Crusade Heroics for hours, plus a less confident player like myself finds it a bit easier to get a little group of friends together so that the hard content can be done without being judged when you mess up, and it'll be great prep for raiding. Yeah, you'll probably like my next video then. It's got a lot to do with Mythic heroics. I think Mythic Dungeons in general is just a fantastic idea. I know that Danger Dolan actually has a video for that coming up soon. No idea when he's going to release it, but I think he did say in the comments of one of his things that he would do them. Anyway, so next and final comment is from Alex Loveridge, who says, "Okay, I've decided you need to work at Blizzard. Very good ideas. Well, shit. First, you need to get a job in human resources, and then via that, you need to get me a job. So, Alex, go forth and get me a job." Right. Or do I want a job at Blizzard? I mean, I wouldn't be allowed to do YouTube anymore. I don't know. I'll just have to do, like, an indie thing on one side, and then YouTube on the other side, and just be random famous internet person that does everything, and then ends up just dying of stress when I'm 25, because there is no real way that you can make games and do YouTube to this capacity without not sleeping. And as I have found out, when you don't sleep for 4 days straight, that was at the end of last year in one of our projects, you essentially just kind of collapse. And it's really weird. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.